Welcome back, and bit of an Easter special here. So we've all heard about this whole concept of photogrammetry and LiDAR and all of that, and how we can make brilliant things. And we've seen the things, like we've seen Todd Kay's Santa Monica Mountains runs, and we'll show a bit of that. And we've seen things like iSavic's wonderful mod, where he's added his hometown and tracked these mapped out in his hometown into Assetto Corsa. And there's a lot of things that this opens up in terms of possibilities. We could suddenly say, okay, I'm putting a race track of my hometown, or that thing that when you were kids and you're going, oh, it would be really cool if we had a race around these streets, and all those kinds of things. Sounds totally doable, sounds totally awesome, right? And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. There's also one other thing that I thought about when I heard this was suddenly I should be able to rip any track from any game and put it in another game, right? So let's have a look at how doable this is with free tools. So what we don't get told a lot is what it kind of looks like, what it kind of takes. So I've got a few examples here. This is the front of our house where we live. This was done by kind of walking past. I think this one was just the walk past. There was some walk past, and then there was also, carrying a camera on the end of a pole. And this is, I ended up trashing the model because you can see there. The drive looks like it's made of wet cement. Here it is another one with a bit less light. And you can see that this is not particularly great quality. What you don't find out is that this is caused by things like not knowing what I'm doing, using free tools. Free tools are something that I'm somewhat committed to. Spending for things like Capture Reality when I don't know what I'm doing in terms of preparing the input for this is something I'm not willing to do at the moment. But you can also see that there's clearly promise here. It's managed to pick up, the bushes here. It's managed to pick up the drive. It's made them separate objects or separate parts of a mesh. It's picked out the front of the house. Somehow I'd have to remove all the sky because the sky loves to just create this huge mesh, and here I've done some effort to remove it. And this is one where I think I've done a slightly better job of cleaning up, but it's also using a different tool. So that's the other thing, is different tools give you different results. The thing that is universally true is how much time it takes to do this level of photogrammetry input production, and you're talking days for one house at this quality. If we then move to something like, let's say we try capturing something from a game. So if I fire up Assetto Corsa and throw some laps down, and then I use the camera facing forwards, backwards, to the left and to the right, and then put that in a photogrammetry app, and I'm aiming for just the pit area at Brands Hatch. This is just the pits and the pit exit. I get something this kind of quality, and you can see it's done okay here. Obviously, this is something where I've just taken, this is a still image. I'm not going to be able to rotate around, but what you can't see is the quality of some of these textures. From this distance, it looks kind of okay, but the building's lumpy. You can see that there's this other little weird bit of pit over on the left here, and that's that's meant to be part of the pit exit, bizarrely. There's the control tower is partly there. The texturing down, along the walls and things is not quite right and not quite smooth. So there's plenty that you can work on here. If we then go to Druids, and this is again another still that I've taken, you can see it's got the overall layout of the corner right. It's got some of the trees around the sides. It's for some reason blended in the sky as well. Again, it would be something you'd have to prepare. You can see it's got part of the bridge, but you can also see that it's got these other little weird fragments around the edges. So it's not quite there, right? And again, from a game. So this is from Assetto Corsa, and it took days to render this. So here we have essentially a Druids model of Druids. Again, this is from the Assetto Corsa, and again, it took days to produce, and this is in Blender. So I've imported this into Blender from the model, and let's talk about what we can see here. So you can see it's got the general layout of the track, it's got the bridge, it's worked that out. Clearly, because the camera doesn't capture the top of the bridge, it doesn't know about the top of the bridge. It seems like it knows about the floor of the bridge, possibly. Yep, I think it knows about the floor of the bridge. Does it know about the gradient? Well, we can check that in a minute. But what's this bit here? Why has it got a floating piece? So if we want to answer the question of, does it actually get the gradient of the track? So ignoring that floating section, you can see I've added a plane here to this scene, and you can see it's got this piece of the track here, ignoring that floating section, is quite high. Is that quite right? I'm not sure, but you can see it's actually worked out that there's a slope, but apparently it's quite steep coming up into the corner. It's steeper coming up to the corner than on the way down. Apparently this is almost all at the same level, and I don't know that that's true, right? So I feel like, again, there's a gradient to the track, and it's worked out some of it, but it hasn't worked out all of it. So further limitations that we would need to overcome if we were just going to use photogrammetry to rip from a video game. So what could we do with it? Well, as I said, you've seen iSavic's videos, hopefully. If you haven't, links below. And you can go and get things like this from Todd Kay on Race Department. Again, links below. So this is his Santa Monica, or part of his Santa Monica mod, and you can see just how good things could get. So this could be extremely gorgeous, this could be a fantastic tool that we can use. But you can see, like, over on the right there, you saw there was like a bit of a gap. So what it looks like is he's got probably a BlenderGIS base layout for the topography. Then he's done his photogrammetry runs on top of that and added that, and then you can see it looks like he's added grass, looks like he's added bushes, and there's quite a bit that can be done. So, you know, we can look off to the side, and because those other mountains are quite far away, if it isn't something that's in the foreground of his photogrammetry, it's entirely likely that that's done using just BlenderGIS. Fantastic. But you'll also see that, as if you go through these, there are other little artifacts where there'll be a little hole or a little pocket just in some of the cliff faces, or just on the side of the road where things, you know, have a bit of a gap or what have you. I think it's something like 21 miles or something of roads, which is amazing. There's no way on earth you would create this manually in that kind of time, in the kind of time I'm sure it took to do this. And, you know, you're talking thousands of hours, tens of thousands of hours. You're talking like months of work. Things that you find, and I mean, I did a trial run through Backstreets. If you're just using video to capture these things, you don't get the best results. You seem to need a JPEG source that has all the metadata, so has the EXIF metadata, because the EXIF metadata has things like, I'm at this location, I have this focal length, and that is incredibly useful. Just having video frames is not. You still have to consider things like, do we actually have to go through and remove the sky from this as part of the prep? Quite possibly. If that's the case, okay, well then you're talking about, do I have to go and pay for something like Adobe to do that? Do I have to use reality capture rather than Agisoft Metashape? I'm talking about things like Meshroom. Okay, these are tools you can get that will do a base job, and I mean, even Metashape, you are on a free license for something like 3 weeks to a month. After that, you're paying, and it's that cost is a factor. Do you need to have a drone? Do you need to have a modern high-speed camera just so that you can take all these things, right? Do you need a GoPro? The little crappy action camera that I have, the Kaiser Bass thing, that it's not good enough. It's clearly, right? It can do 120 frames at like 720p. Well, that's okay, but that's a video. I don't get EXIF data. I don't have a GPS plugged into it that can tell me where it is, where things are related to each other. So there's all these little bits and pieces that you need to consider if you're going to do a quality job. And if you're not, you wear the cost. So you can see a gap there, but it's clear from this that it is not an instant solution. It is not suddenly going to solve all our lives to import all these tracks that we want or to rip tracks. And it's clearly like that step up, and it's making things easier and better. And this is fantastic, right? This is clearly a great piece of work. But it's not at a level where it is a simple solution. It is a lot of computing power, it is a lot of preparation time, it is a lot of filming time to get to this quality. So that's my roundup of what's photogrammetry able to do at this point. But what you can see is there's potential. There's clearly potential, and clearly if you've got the time and the patience and the skill and the equipment, you can produce magic. In the meantime, have a great weekend, and I'll see you next time.